Good evening, everyone. The market has been going up, even though recently there's some escalation in terms of the war scenes. So we'll go through that in a short while. And on top of that, Jerome Powell is going to be announcing the results for the Fed's interest rates. Are they going to increase? Are they going to decrease? Are they going to hold at whatever rates that they're going to hold? And him as a person, what's going to happen to him? Back in 2018, Donald Trump was the one that kind of pushed him to be the chair. But now in 2025, Donald Trump, US president, has different stance, and he really hopes that he can reduce the Federal Reserve rates. We're going to go through one of the companies that I'm holding. Our awesome community are probably holding as well, right? CrowdStrike. We will look into their earnings as well as why I am having a bad sensing about this company, even though their growth is been phenomenal, right? So these are the few things we will be going through tonight. Let me just quickly introduce myself for our new members as well as our YouTube audience that maybe have not seen me before and what is GoodWhale. So let me quickly just share a little bit about myself. My name is Jia Xuan, right? So you can call me JX. I came from a non-finance background and in fact, particularly in food science. So that was my background and I grew interested into this space because firstly, everyone needs money. And particularly when I came out into the workforce, there's a lot of things that's happened in my milestones in my journey as a growing up adult. So made me be more aware and conscious about how I need to treat money. And that's what got me to learn more and eventually enter into this space. For me, I'm an educator since my uni days all the way until now. In fact, I've been investing for around 5 years time, right? Since 2020. Yeah, so I didn't catch the biggest wave in terms of the dip back then when COVID like escalated quickly. But my investing journey started after the dip kind of recovered. If I have started earlier, of course my results will be better, but that's on hindsight, right? Right now I'm a portfolio manager for my family. Right now around managing a 6 figures kind of portfolio. The size itself doesn't really matter much. I think more importantly is how we journey together, how we grow our portfolio from whatever amount you start with. Right, there's going to be a lot of people out there that could potentially have a higher capital than you or smaller capital starting amount to invest with, right? It doesn't matter. So for me, so far for these 5 years, my track record is quite decent, right? It's around like 11% CAGR growth. That means to say that every single year, imagine that, if I start on 2020, every single year I'm growing my portfolio by 11%. That's a simple analogy. And last but not least, just to share some of the highlights of my this year so far. Right, so for the past 1 year, I think because it was the dip, right, and then that's where my portfolio was resilient and the companies I picked and the ETFs I picked. That's why so far the portfolio, I'm quite happy with the results. Okay, but yeah, so if you are not happy with your portfolio, don't worry because that's what our community is here for. We exchange ideas, we share and update each other about the markets so that we can find opportunities together. We can keep each other in check. In fact, I think back then when the market was in a frenzy because of the whole tariff situation, I think our community was quite different from others where we create so much fear, but instead we were like thinking, hey, which one do I go in? And prior to that, we have some sessions that we talk about what are the 5 companies that we would like to focus on so that when the opportunity arises, we have the bullets to activate it. This is a little bit about me, a little bit about our community, and yeah, so very happy to see all of you here tonight. But anyway, just a recap of what we have gone through from 2025, right? So this is not including all the things that we talked about since 2023 September onwards, right? And this is just this year alone. This past 6 months, we've covered so many things from NVIDIA, talking about different ETF, TSMC, DeepSeek stuff. We talk about some platform that 80% of the physicians are using. If you're interested about this, join us and then click the 1 month complimentary link inside YouTube, right? Inside our link. That's right. You can get it for free for 1 month and then you can watch all these recordings. Okay, yeah. Last week I was talking about WWDC 2025. To me, it was quite disappointing, but this company just went IPO a few days before I shared this, and it has continued to rise up, right? Even though I have my personal take on it. And you can see apparently my take doesn't seem to be very accurate at times. But I think it's more in terms of my comfort level, my risk profile, my risk level for that company, and how I would not want to participate in IPO in general, right? So if you want to find out why I don't like to invest in IPO, right, check out this video as well. Okay, great. So let's go straight into today's first content, right? As I mentioned, Israel and Iran recently started another jab to the economy. Everyone is like panicking, right? And the number one like victim, I wouldn't call it victim, but the number one party that is affected is actually the oil side of things, lah. Right? So if you're aware of this news, type in a one in the chat. If you are not aware, type in a zero. $17. So little. That's $72 per barrel. Right. One barrel, $72. And that is crude oil. Right. So if it's, I don't know whether it's cheap or not, but it's not in the pure form, lah. So imagine you still have to do something about it. You still have to go and refine it. And if you don't have the distillation machine, then what are you going to do with this? Yeah. Okay, very good. So yeah. So a lot of people, everyone is probably aware of this news, right? So oil prices side of things has been going up and down, right? When the news came out, the oil prices soar up, and then after a while, when there's some news saying that Iran and Israel is trying to have a truce of this, then it went down a bit, but then it went up again, right? As you can see, oil, this commodity is really not my kind of thing, and I am highly doubt our community members here are as well. Yeah, so personally, I'm more towards investing into businesses, companies, because I believe that these are the things that through some selection, through understanding about the management team who is running behind these companies, right? I have better sensing of how the trajectory of it will go. So as compared to a commodity where it's really dependent on the buy and sell, the demand as well as the supply, and on top of that, all this kind of big news that we cannot control, we cannot foresee it happening unless we are the one that is instigating it. Right? So for me, commodity is something that I don't touch. But if you know what you're doing with it, if you're using this as a form of like futures trading or whatever, just make sure that you stay safe, you know, understand what you're doing, then you continue to do it. But for me, this is not something of my interest, right? Because oil is just oil. And in terms of where the world is heading towards, and the world should head towards, is to go green, right? Because all this fossil fuel, all this non-green use of energy sources are really causing a lot of harm, right? If you are a parent, if you are going to have kids next time, I think what we do now really matters. Yeah. So this type of things is slowly going to be phased out, hopefully, right, as soon as possible, right? Okay, yeah. So as I mentioned, the stock market still continues to rise. In fact, some of my holdings soared up again. Right, that's why my portfolio went even higher. Good and bad news. Good news is that portfolio is going up. Who has to complain about that, right? But for some of the analysts out there, they're saying that, hey, the news of this Israel and Iran thing, right? Hey, why the market still rising? There's something not right. I think that maybe like a lot of people are like saying, this is a small thing, Israel and Iran, they will naturally die down, and by the way, the Russia and Ukraine war haven't ended, right? This is like the 1,200 over days already. Suddenly, this news is no longer in our pictures, no longer being shown to us unless you search for it, which goes against to show that the news outlets out there, the news that's being generated tends to trigger certain emotions, right? That's why I believe coming together for Wealth Pulse is a good way for us to stay grounded and like filter out the noise, so that we focus on what is the important stuff. And the important stuff is the things that we can and we need to control, right? So if you agree, type in a 2 in the chat. Right? We need to focus on the things that we can control, right? Often or not, we like to focus on things that we can't control, right? Such as my kids' reaction, my kids' emotions, right? Yeah. Apart from that, I think in the investing space, right, emotions play a very big part that hurts a person's portfolio. So that's why staying grounded is important. Okay. Yeah, markets is not so affected, but I think because there's a few things that's happening, right? Now that we have the inflation rate data coming out, we have the producer price index numbers coming up, right? Which tells us a little bit more about the economy situation, right? Inflation rate has gone up, even though for the past 3 to 4 months, right, they have been on the decline, right? So does this means that the Feds have less of a reason to reduce the interest rates? Or from the other end, from the producer's price index, it also goes to show that though it's increasing again, right, which is a sign that inflation is slowly creeping up, because these are the two matrices that kind of like interlink with each other. And despite the fact that interest rates, inflation rates is increasing, on the other end, the unemployment rate has gone down. So this is like another, it's like a seesaw. They're supposed to go down together, then there's more justification. But now there's going one is going up and one is going down. So yeah. So whether the Feds, right, Jerome Powell and his team will actually cut the interest rate, I highly doubt so. But I think for now, because the terrorist situation is not like fully understood, I guess that's not the best word. But basically, it's not fully reflecting in terms of all these numbers that they tracked on. That's why I believe tonight, is it tonight? Is it tomorrow? It's tomorrow, right? It's tomorrow, 18. Yeah. So tomorrow we'll find out whether the Fed is going to cut or maintain the interest rates. So we can do a small little bet later on. If you think that you will maintain, type in a 2 in the chat. Yeah. So that is the Fed's call to make, right? Which ultimately is being directed through our Mr. Uncle Jerome Powell. And that's why Donald Trump seems to be a bit unhappy, right? President Trump seems to be rushing and trying to influence that the Feds to reduce the interest rate because of the last week we talked about the unemployment rate is going down. It's a good thing. So there's no need to curb the economy. That's why President Trump wants to like, hey, Jerome Powell, let's just reduce the interest rate by 1%. That's like a very big number, right? So whether you'll cut or not, I really don't know. But one is doing his job, one is trying to do his job as well. So who knows? On the side note, this is something that I think is more important is that with this scene of how President Trump is wanting to replace Jerome Powell, right? Who are the candidates available and will this happen or not? Or will Jerome Powell just slowly ends his term as a leader in 2026? Let's talk about this for a moment. Okay, so I think all in all, when this news came out to me, I was like, oh, okay, we have a new change in leader, and I assume the narrative of this is to see how the next person that's coming on board is going to influence or be affecting the chair, affecting the whole Fed's decision. But let me just refer to some notes here that I have, right? Is that the Feds, this Feds, right, it's actually not just by Jerome Powell, right? It's actually by a group of people. And this group of people are actually chosen to form this group. And in total, there's 12 to 13, 12 people, if I'm not wrong, 12 different banks coming up to form this board. And then that's how they decide on things, on this stuff. And then before they have the chair, which kind of is the leader, right, to be the one that's announcing all this stuff. In my take, as an investor for 5 years, right, I don't really focus on this. Firstly, because whoever is the person next, right, I don't get a say in it. And second of all, the Fed's purpose is to control inflation. No matter who comes up and goes down, right, the Fed's role is to control inflation. If you understand this, type in a 1 in the chat. Their role is not to be a friend of Donald Trump. Their role is not to help and be influenced by the president, right? Their role as a US federals, right, is to control inflation, right? So if that is the purpose of this, I would say, organization, right, then whoever comes out on board, right, to me, it doesn't really matter. It's just a way that the news outlets wants to find things to talk about. Right. I think for the longest time, Jerome Powell has been doing his job to control the inflation, as we can see from his results over here. Right. So you can see that it's trying to go down, but it went up, which are things that he can't control. But he's doing his best to control the interest rate so that it can curb it, right? But whoever comes up next doesn't really matter to me. And that is the conclusion I want to share so far. If you get it, type in a 1 in the chat. Yeah, I don't know, right? Maybe the last day of his term, he'll just Jerome Powell might come out and just say that, hey, I'm just going to increase the interest rate. But obviously, it cannot be done that way because there's a procedure to go behind it. Okay, so to me, this is just bypassing news. It doesn't really affect us. What affects us is actually more towards how we find our companies, how we find and allocate our money. to invest, right? So those are the things that is more important. Which comes to this, right? How investors out there are investing, right? One of the ways is to use this thing called the fear and greed index, right? So if you have been tuning into our weekly Tuesday live session, you should already know that this is something that we talk about it every single week. And if you are watching from YouTube right now, and this is the first time you come across this chart or this graph, right? Just do me a favor, just like our video and follow us for more so that when we have this live session, you can come in to listen a little bit and upgrade and learn a bit about your investing knowledge. Okay, this is just a way that people actually use to choose when to invest, right? So this fear and greed index is iteration of how Warren Buffett's favorite term or favorite phrase is being used lah. When people are fearful, I should be greedy, and when the market is greedy, I need to be fearful, right? So this is exactly the point. When you see that the fear and greed index is on the greed or the extreme greed side of things, right? It goes to show that this might not be the best time to enter because everyone is pushing the prices up and higher, right? So in these situations, the valuation is usually on the overvalued side of things, and nobody wants to pay extra for something that is not worth that amount, right? So that's why this is a good gauge. And on the other spectrum, if let's say the fear and greed index goes to the negative or the minus, not minus, the red side, which is your fear as well as the extreme fear. Oh, this is where the market is very fearful. Everyone's not very certain about the economy, what's going to happen to this company per se, or this 500 companies, right? Then, right, people are signing off because they are FOMO. And that's why, again, the importance of a community to stay grounded so that we don't get influenced by all these noises outside. Okay, so that's why we can use this as a gauge to see how fearful or how greedy the market is. And then from there, we make a judgment to say, let's say if I'm investing in S&P 500, if I'm investing in the US economy, this indicator is extremely useful to you because simply you don't have to look too much into finding out what companies to pick because this ETF, this basket of stocks already contains the 500 top profitable companies in US, right? So this is like the best 500 candidates out there for you to pick. And you don't need to pick one, you can pick the whole basket, right? And that's why ETF investing came into place. And talking about ETF investing, this is something that our team is actually looking into and not looking into, but also developing a course. Yeah, we'll be updating you about this course on the ETF, how to invest in shortly, right? So this is something that we have been working on that you can tune in if you don't know how to invest, right? And if you already know what is ETF and how to invest, you can just use this as a gauge to DCA, just different amount. All right. Yeah, so this is still greedy. I don't know when it will be fearful, but who knows, right? So I'm very happy to say that a lot of our community members took some action during this dip here. And my personal one also benefited from this, right? So I've updated in the previous sessions about this. And if you're interested, join our community to find out more. Okay, so this is more on how we look at the market in overall, how these companies, these 500 companies behave and went up by 4.6% from the lowest dip over here, right? So you can see that the market is a constant moving up and down, and it doesn't mean that when the market is down, the companies are not good. It's just to say that the people buying it are selling for a very cheap price. Okay. Oops, I think something happened. Yeah, so coming back again, right? So this is something that we like to advocate, right? Which is the bucket strategy, right? So if you don't know how to invest, the first thing you need to do, right, is to do with your protection, right? So the protection side of things is where you have save aside your rainy day funds, 3 to 6 months or 6 to 12 months, depend on your situation. But basically, you need to have emergency funds set aside in case things happen, followed by having your insurance, your healthcare insurance, your hospital insurance, everything settled before we talk about investing, right? Because investing contains risk. So the things that you buy now might go down in value. And if you cannot wait for the long-term returns, right, then you're likely going to be very stressful, which is why we don't want this situation to happen. That's why we have this 4 bucket strategy. Okay. So everyone just type in the 4 inside the chat. Okay. Yes. So 4 bucket. The first one, protection. Once that's settled, then we talk about investing. And investing, consists of, to us in GoodWhale, right, we have these three different buckets: your defense, your attack, as well as your lottery bucket, right? As you can see, the defense is where the growth rates are not so fantastic, but it's still decent, right? And also it consists of low risk products such as your bonds, T-bills, ETFs, mutual funds, all this, your dividend stocks or REITs that gives out your annual or semi-annual distributions, right? So these are some of the forms of lower risk investment tools that you can consider as a start to your investing journey. And then we move on to the next part where, let's say, if you realize that investing or putting my money in bonds, T-bills, giving me a rate of, I don't know what's the rate right now, 2 to 4%, right? These rates are not sufficient for you to reach a certain financial goal you want, right? And then that's where you need to consider a slightly higher risk product or slightly higher risk tools out there that allows you to have that growth rate. And that comes to the attack bucket. You got your stocks, you got your crypto, or you can even start a small business or even side hustle, right? These are the things that have a better form of return if it works well. But on the downside, if it doesn't work so well, at least you know that this is a bucket that is much smaller than your defense. So anything that's happening to your attack bucket, right, at least as a whole, your whole portfolio is not so affected because it's still being like bolstered or protected with the big defense base. Okay, so then the last one we move on to, which is the gambling mode, which is your lottery bucket, right? I hopefully hope that this is a very small bucket to you. And if you see anyone that is having a very big lottery bucket out there, you got to tell them to turn it around, change it into the defense bucket instead, right? So this includes all the meme stocks, all the stocks that you don't understand, or your crypto side of things that you don't understand, or even like your lotteries, right? So this is where you can actually allocate your funds to using this 4-bucket strategy. Nice. Yeah, so the reason why we give out this, we share with this 4-bucket strategy is also because, right, when it comes to allocating your funds, right, you need to know how much can you set aside for investing, right? And it all starts with tracking your expenses, right? That's why one of the free tools that we came up with is called GoodWhale Buddy. If you have not done so, right, or have not used this, I highly urge you to take a screenshot of this slide. You can use it either on Telegram or on WhatsApp. And yeah, so there's a few functions that you can go about to clock your expenses, right? Gone are the days where you track your expenses by Excel, by writing down, by keying a lot of the different blanks inside your traditional money tracking expenses app, right? So gone are the days because it's very troublesome. I tried 4 to 5 times, it didn't work out. And this is one thing that I really like it because all I need to do, 2 ways. First way, you just take a photo of your receipt, and yeah, you can see that the buddy can automatically help you understand how much you paid, what kind of category this is, and then help you to classify and clog it for you, right? So this is one of the easiest way you can track your expenses by taking a photo of the receipt. Secondly, you can use it either by typing it, right? Let's say you type in the amount or the value or the item that you buy, and then it can also help to categorize them as well. And the good thing about GoodWhale Buddy is that it's your personalized AI buddy, right? So it's very smart. It understands local context. So doesn't matter if you're Singaporean, Malaysian, you're from UK, Taiwan, Thailand, doesn't matter, right? It can contextualize based on whatever food or language that you are talking about. And that's where this app comes in nicely. And we hope that we can bring this tool to more people because we realize that a lot of people are not tracking expenses and they have no idea how important tracking expenses is because yeah, if you don't track expenses, how much money you are saving. And if you are not saving, that is a big problem. If you are saving, how much of your savings can be allocated for investing, which is why we are here talking about investing. And it all starts with this, right? That's why if you can help us to share this to more friends, family, even the young ones, so that they have more awareness on how to keep track of their expenses. All right. Great. So this is more on that. Nice. Yeah, so by the way, just a shout out that we have this space here for you to actually promote your brand or products here. So if you are looking for some place to advertise, you can contact us so that we can help you to do a sponsored post on this. Okay, so this is something that we are exploring, and if you're interested, let us know as well at marketing@goodwhale.com. Okay, let me see the chat in the meantime. Wow, a lot of people is eating chicken. Oh, chicken. What's this? Yeah, a lot of friends, no problem buy it if they can see. Oh yeah. Okay, great. Again, so if you have your companies or your friends or who are doing businesses, they want some place to do some ads, you know who to look for. Okay, so let's go into today's topic, and I will cut this off halfway for our viewers that's on YouTube because I would like you to understand a little bit about some companies that we are looking into, right? And for the later segment, it will be a closed door segment for our Wealth Pulse community members. But don't worry if you're interested, sorry. If you're interested, right? Inside YouTube, under our description, there is a link that says Wealth Pulse, right? So just simply click on it and you can go and register and claim your 1 month complimentary access, which allows you to come into the Zoom sessions or the recordings for whatever we have been talking about, as well as CrowdStrike, which I'm going through right now. Okay, how many of you are interested and excited to go through this topic? If you are, type in the 1 in the chat. Oh, by the way, my colleague Eric is in Japan and he's in Hokkaido. Okay, I went Hokkaido in the winter season. It's a fun experience, but everything is white. Yeah, but this period, I think is more colorful. Yeah, so nice place, and yeah. So next week, hopefully, you can get Eric to share some of his trip as well as his experience. Oh, it's hot right now. Yep. Okay, so let's go straight into today's topic because I think this is a company that I've been looking into. And prior to sharing with you like why I feel that they are going to be kicked out of S&P 500, let me give you some context along the way. So firstly, let's go through what happened and why do I think so. So this company, CrowdStrike, they are in the cybersecurity space. Okay, there's many players in this space, this industry, and I will show you in the next slide. But more importantly, they have recently been added into the coolest club that everybody wants to go in US. And this club is called the S&P 500. Okay, so why is this such a big hoo-ha and why many companies, many US companies in fact, wants to go into this place or this club? It's because to be under this S&P 500, it simply tells investors out there, firstly, I am good. Okay, if I'm not good, I won't be inside because there's a lot of criteria. And the criteria are as follow, right? The market cap must be of a certain big size. They must be very tradable, right? These are things that, some of the requirements, not so important. But more importantly, for you to be inside this cool club, you need to be profitable, right? Which goes to show that this is a profitable business, right? If it's not profitable, it's a cash burning machine. It's a cash burning company. And when things are burning, it's never good. Okay, that's why for you to be inside this cool club, you have to be positive in terms of your profitability. And if you are not, you cannot be included. So a good thing about CrowdStrike is that in June 2024, which is just last year, in fact, it's just 1 year ago, right? They were included into the coolest club in US. And not the coolest, but one of the coolest one, right? Because they have 5 quarters of like profitability, right? And this is something that they have reached. But what happens next? You can see that from July onwards, right? Can you see that their profitability actually went down? If you can see that, type in the 1 in the chat. Oh no! CrowdStrike is no longer cool. Are they going to be kicked out? So this was something that caught my eye because they took so long, right, to finally be profitable so that they can be included into the club. And now look at the results. It's going down and down the hill, right? So there must be something wrong. And whether it will be kicked out, we'll go through that in the later part as well. Okay, so coming back again, for those who don't understand what CrowdStrike do, they are in this space of cybersecurity. And cybersecurity have a lot of different segments, I would say, right? So they started off being a very good and expert in terms of the endpoint, right? So what is endpoint? Endpoint is basically the tools or the equipments that us as users are using. We are the end consumer, right? So things like your phone, your iPad, your Mac, your watches, anything that you as a consumer is using, those are considered endpoints, right? So they have been in this space. They actually started with this space because they realized that this is one of the most important area that hackers or vulnerability comes from. That's why they came from here. And what is so different about them and other players, or the traditional ones at least, is that they are no longer the type where you have to download a single app and then you have to go constantly. Like the previous ones that I've used before are like your McAfee lah. So you have a license key, or you have a this, you have to run it through your com, and then you have to download the software. And this software has different versions. So meaning to say, if I want the next best version, I have to go and buy the next this, buy the next version. If you have this experience before, type in a 2 in the chat. Super inconvenient, right? Every version is only have a certain limit. So this was my experience, and I think some of you have the same experience as well, right? So they came into the picture because they are different. They don't have this kind of licensing. Instead, they realized that, hey, instead of going to download a key or installing version 1, version 2, how about we just do everything on the cloud, right? We realized that if our system is in the cloud where it's accessible to everyone, right, it can be constantly updated along the way, right? So they came into the picture, and slowly from there, they move into other places, right? They move from endpoint to go into the cloud security, and then go into like identity side, which makes sure that no one or no hacker out there is pretending to be you and then using your information or you to sign off certain stuff, right? So these are the different areas that they slowly expanded into. So in our community, we also have a very expert person in cybersecurity, right? So join us and you can ask Kun Kun over here as well. So Kun Kun probably is a better explanation experts than me. Suddenly Kun Kun not around already. Okay, but anyways, yeah, so they have slowly evolved into this cybersecurity space covering different segments. And now they are trying to convince their customers or their prospects that we have the different segments already. Just choose us, right? Just choose us, because if everything is in our platform, we can help you to protect from endpoint to cloud to your identity whatsoever. So that's what they're trying to say, right? And this actually helps to reduce a lot of the hassle for companies, because they might be getting software from this side for endpoint. Then from a company, they can use the cloud side of things. And yeah, so if everything is all over the place, it's not connected, it's harder to find out and prevent all of these threats from happening. Okay. Along the way, they have developed over 30 different modules, meaning to say 30 different functions, all in their in the company's progress so far. And that allows them to sell all these modules to many different players. As you can see from this table, right, they started to track the number of modules or the number of functions that their customers can sign up for, right? So you can see that initially, or since they started revealing, right, the number of modules, right, it becomes more and more expensive as more modules are being signed up, right? The number of 7 modules, for example, went up according from 27%, right? Now it's 32%, right? And slowly they started to share about number of the percentage in terms of modules in more 8 or more, right? So basically it's trying to tell you that more people are slowly using more and more of their products, which also goes to show that they're functioning good, right? So I don't know. Like maybe Kun Kun got like some sense like what he wants about or what he knows about CrowdStrike, because he says like, oh, what is CrowdStrike and what is cybersecurity? So boring. Yeah. But anyways. So coming back, right? This company, right? They have boasted that they have. You can see from these numbers that the number of people using their modules is getting more and more. And from this side of things, it's also showing that the customers that they have already acquired, the customers that are already using CrowdStrike's software, have most of them stayed with them. So out of 100 people, only 3 people decided that, hey, CrowdStrike is not for me, right? But apart from that, the 97, 98% people say that, hey, CrowdStrike is good for me, I will continue to use them. And not only that, right, this net retention rate tells you that the people who continues to stay with them, this 97 to 98 people, they realize that, hey, I need an upgrade. So instead of spending the same amount they did last year, they spend more this year, which is why it is more than 100%. Right? So this also goes to show that people who, once they get the customers, most of them will stay. And secondly, when they stay, they don't just pay the same amount, they buy more, right? Which is a good thing. And then it comes to this quarter, right? Q1 FY 2026. They revealed that their gross margin is also 97%, very good, but they didn't mention anything about the net retention rate, which then makes me question like, hey, what is going on? Right, so I didn't find this number. So if you manage to find this number, do share with us as well. Okay. And so what is the reason why they didn't share this quarter? Very suspicious, right? It could be because of the outage situation back then in July last year that resulted in them losing a lot of business, a lot of people dropping off, which I don't know why. But it shouldn't be the case because the gross retention is at 97%, right? So what happened next? I have no idea. So let's slowly find out a bit. But if, let's say we were to look at some of their numbers right now, right, that this company, they can retain their customers are paying more and more. The revenue is very good, right? Because you can see that it has grown, it's continuing to grow over the different years, right? And in terms of the annual recurring revenue, which tells you how much of their revenue is expected to have this amount, right? It's like over $4.4 billion, right? And this company, obviously, you can see that their revenue is a lot is coming from the subscription side of things. Okay, so this is a little bit about what CrowdStrike does. But if you want to find out more, and if you're tuning from YouTube, you can join our Zoom by clicking on this link inside your description, or you can just scan this QR code, which directs you to claim your 1 month complimentary access. And then you just need to go into events, go into this particular tab, and just join us for Zoom. All right. Let me see what are the comments inside our chat. Oh, so Kun, you're saying that many customers are trying to reduce costs by using other providers. Is that correct? But do they come back? Any insights to share that these people are actually coming back to use CrowdStrike? Or they decided that it's I decided to just change to that software provider. Yeah. So this is something I don't know. The customers you're mentioning, Kun, are they smaller ones or are they the big players? Because I have a feeling Strike is very useful for the very, very big organizations, right? The multinational ones. So, not very sure. Big or small is the same. Okay. Nice. I see. Okay. So, for the people tuning in on YouTube, if you're interested, join us in our Wealth Pulse and our Zoom. All right, you have the link, you have the QR code, you can join us, and I will end this session today. Thank you so much for watching the YouTube live. And if you can help us to like this video as well as subscribe us for more, because we will continue to do this live segment every single Tuesdays, Singapore timing, 8 to 9 p.m. Right? So join us as we explore and explain the market to you.